Which celebrity's death actually made you cry? Fred Rogers. He was genuinely the nicest man to anyone who ever met him. This man had a heart of gold. I remember him doing episodes that featured disabilities, and if I recall correctly, an episode dealing with racial discrimination. Heaven got a gem when he passed. While a lot of them have deeply affected me, Bowie, Robin Williams, Carrie Fisher to name a few others mentioned elsewhere in the thread, and I've definitely let a tear or two slide on some of those when seeing some particular bit of their films or music. Only one made me cry just from the raw news of their death, Jim Henson. Jim Henson for sure, maybe not a traditional celebrity, but the Muppets, Fraggle Rock, man, I'm still sad thinking about his death. I was 14 when he died, lifelong Muppets fan. My dad was reading the paper, how quaint, and told me Jim Henson died. I immediately said no he didn't. My dad again confirmed that he died and I remember yelling no, he didn't. Then I sat down and cried. First time I ever cried over a celebrity death. Jim Henson defined my childhood and I still mourn his passing. Gene Wilder. I remember exactly where I was when I heard the news. I was sitting down in a sandwich shop and it was broadcast on the store radio. I heard it but it didn't really register at first, but as soon as I got home it hit me and I had to lie down and cry for a few minutes. According to his family, while taking his last breath he was listening to Over the Rainbow. Such a poetic way to depart. I don't know how to describe it. May he rest in peace. Sam Lloyd. Can't watch Scrubs without feeling caught up. Was listening to the Blanks cover of Hey You the other day and I just froze. Never had a celebrity death have any effect on me in the past. AWW, I didn't know he died. Philip Seymour Hoffman. We knew his inner turmoil made him an amazing actor, which is what made it all the more difficult to learn how he died. Tragedy. I went through a strong phase where Almost Famous was a comfort binge watch for me when I felt alone. His character Lester Bangs says a line I think about especially during the lonely scary pandemic days. Lester Bangs, the only true currency in this bankrupt world is what we share with someone else when we're uncool. Brittany Murphy. I used to watch her movies all the time with a friend of mine who is also now deceased. I still get sad watching her movies. Brittany had the best quote I've ever seen. She'd dated Ashton Kutcher before he dated Demi. When asked how she felt about them dating, she said, I think it's cool, it shows that to him age doesn't matter and to her size doesn't matter.
You're sitting here wondering what to do with your life when suddenly, boom! Raid Shadow Legends appears. What's that you say? A game with epic champions, nerve-wracking PvE and PvP combat, and a tactical battle system that'll make your head spin? Now, since Raid just celebrated its 4th anniversary, let's see which 4 champions I'd invite to a dinner party. First up, Geomancer, the master of rock and earth, ensuring the sturdiest dinner table around. Next we have Ignatius, the fiery warrior, grilling our steaks to perfection with his searing abilities. Astralon would be our 3rd guest, bringing some celestial charm and dazzling light. And finally, Lady Kimi to add a touch of elegance to the party. Now that's a dinner party for the ages. In more exciting news, Raid's hosting a Dragon Egg Hunt. Just download Raid Shadow Legends using the links below, then head on over to egghunt.plarium.com from April 14th to May 15th. Enter your player ID and dive into an AR adventure. Find a hidden egg for a chance to win in-game items and real-life prizes. Existing players, don't fret, there's a special promo code for you too. So what are you waiting for? Join the Raid Shadow Legends party today! New players, use my link or scan the QR code to get your free starter pack with this cool in-game loot.
I cried over River Phoenix and Kurt Cobain when I was a teen. Long time ago now. As an adult, I will admit to having to wipe my eyes when I heard Chris Cornell died. It was just such a shock. So many of my musical heroes from my youth were already gone. I'd really thought he'd be one of the ones who made it to a ripe old age. It made me want to wrap Eddie Vedder in cotton wool and make sure nothing happens to him. Oh, so true about Vedder. In the early 90s used to listen to a lot of Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and the last singer alive of these 4 bands is Eddie. Gotta love him. Anthony Bourdain. I'm a chef and his impact on pretty much everyone in my industry is immeasurable. Kitchen Confidential is easily the most impactful book for most all of us. The most amazing way of translating and speaking about food chef culture. His shows had an amazing way of highlighting other cultures and the way food brings people together no matter where you are from, and showing that a lot of our differences are purely cosmetic. That day was easily the quietest day I've ever spent in a professional kitchen in my life. Everyone was just silent and upset. Anthony Bourdain's death inspired me to go back to therapy. It hit me so hard because I loved his food travel shows. Freddie Mercury. It was really hitting hard at that time in my life, and I still remember when I heard the news in the car stereo of someone giving me a lift. We were both in tears and it was one of the saddest moments I had ever had back then. Not to mention when I had a chance to go to one of the first Queen concerts after that, featuring Paul Rodgers tour, when Brian May played Love of My Life all alone out there on the catwalk. I could not hold back the tears. Still, it's super sad since he would have survived if he were infected like even 10 years after. There were signs that Mercury had been exhibiting HIV symptoms as early as 1982. Bus supported Magic Johnson as he revealed his diagnosis of HIV in 1991. Stan Lee. I have been reading his comics since the late 80s. He has always been a part of my life, and his philosophies really impacted my growth as a person. I remember watching Mallrats and being amazed, because who the heck would think to have Stan cameo? Besides one of my people, I guess. I know it's not all rainbows and puppies. I know about the issues with Jack Kirby and whatnot, and I get it. But Stan was the face figurehead of comics for a long time. I was so glad he was able to live to see his characters properly brought to life. Those of you old enough to remember the older attempts will understand. Given his age, and the reports, I hope he understood it all. At the end, Excelsior. Bowie had me bummed pretty hard, but Robin Williams was so unexpected and tragic that my wife and I toasted him, and I did shed a couple tears. 2016 just killed me. George Michael, Bowie, Prince, and Carrie Fisher. Each of them too early. Each of them a genius with heart and soul. David Bowie. They played Starman during a tribute show to him on the radio the day after he died. I was pulling into the car park at work as it came on. I waited in the car to listen to the end and so I could compose myself afterwards. I'd lost my dad a year or so beforehand and it just really hit me. My dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer 3 months after Bowie died. He had me buy him Black Star and he listened to it in hospital. It really brought him comfort and strength. Alan Rickman. That was just such an unexpected one, and I genuinely cried when I read it. He was such an amazing actor and human. It's still sad he's gone. Same. Such a phenomenal actor and a great guy. He kept his cancer diagnosis private, so it was such a shock to all of his fans that he was even sick. I'm still trying to figure out how to make Siri sound like him. Robin Williams and Chester Bennington. Linkin Park got me through the darkest parts of my life and kept me alive. My dad died by suicide 10 years ago when he just came back into my life, and I lost my entire world at that point, and LP and other bands helped me through. Chester's death rocked me, and so did knowing I would never get to see them live. I saw the tribute concert they did for him. I remember vividly during Numb I think, they called out to the audience, "I want you guys to sing so loud Chester can hear you," and I broke down. I could hear the audience start sobbing. Every lyric hit me before his death, and hearing "Leave out all the rest" on Numb makes me realize he was telling us his story the whole time. Being suicidal, you listen to stuff like that and you understand it on a different level. Robin was just a pure soul who made me and millions of others laugh, all while hiding such pain and an illness he couldn't control. It's a bit like how we say Narcotics Anonymous. What happens when the person who kept you from relapsing relapses? It was such a cold and empty world after they left us, and I never even met them in person. Naya Rivera. Knew it was unlikely she'd survive being missing in a lake, but it still stung when they announced finding her. Was still hoping for a miracle. The whole thing was unbelievably tragic. Phil Hartman. Most have listed others that affected me like River Phoenix, Robin Williams and Carrie Fisher, but Phil Hartman's death just seemed so wrong. By all accounts he was a lovely man and his acting voiceover work was simply top notch that shows like the news radio were lost without him. Selena Quintanilla. I was just a kid when she died and I still remember how much I cried when my parents told me she died. To this day I feel this overwhelming sadness when I hear the song I Could Fall in Love. Weird. Alex Trebek. My immigrant family used to watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy religiously. He was always on TV when I was alive, and hearing how he died really broke me. Just on his back porch swing with his wife as he went. It made me really think that one day, it will be your last day, and what you wear that day, everything you do, what coffee or breakfast you had or whatever, is going to be your last, and that's it. And just the way he went out was so beautiful. I hadn't heard how he died. What a lovely way to go. Bill Paxton. I really enjoyed him. He was very well liked by those around him and I was looking forward to seeing him in more movies. I loved that Storm Chasers basically gave him a Ravager funeral. Christina Grimmie. I was a huge fan of hers since the beginning, having followed her on YouTube since about 2010. She was only 22 when she was shot in the head and killed at her concert by a crazed fan. Her brother jumped the guy, and the killer ended up shooting himself in the head in the struggle. I was wondering if someone would mention her. Right there with you. Sometimes I still tear up when I listen to her music. Such an amazing person she was. Michael Collins' death just a week or two ago was a tough one for me. For those who don't know, Collins was a part of the Apollo 11 mission that put the first men on the moon. But while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were so famously walking on the moon, Collins remained in lunar orbit with a spacecraft that would return them to Earth. I'm a huge nerd about all things space, but especially the early days of NASA, from their first manned launches to the final lunar landings. I've collected quite a few autobiographies from astronauts and mission controllers of that era, and Collins' book, Carrying the Fire, is my favorite. He had such a unique perspective of one of the greatest moments in human history, and he told it in an incredible way. I've had the honor to meet several more modern astronauts from the shuttle days, as well as engineers who designed and built the Saturn V rocket that sent us to the moon. But I've not yet had the opportunity to meet an Apollo astronaut. With Collins' recent passing, there are now only 10 living people who have been to the moon, just 4 of whom actually set foot on it. I'm still quite young, and so I'm confident that I'll live to see the next generation return to the moon and possibly beyond. But until that day, we have very few people remaining who have been to the outer reaches of humanity's capabilities of exploration. And although their stories are recorded in various ways, a piece of the story always dies with the author. Very similarly, I was incredibly saddened by John Glenn's death several years ago. He was the first American to orbit the Earth. He died in 2016, a year where we lost many beloved celebrities, and he died on my birthday. Michael Collins got me too. I think about his experience a lot. All 3 were amazing and nobody really gives him the credit he is due. For my mother it was James Gandolfini. I was too young to know who he really was when he passed, but I've gotten to see his stuff now that I've gotten older. What a phenomenal actor and human being. Daniel Johnston. A schizophrenic singer-songwriter who constantly battled his demons to make the most heartfelt and pure songs possibly ever. I still cry when I listen to his music. True Love Will Find You in the End is one of my favorite songs of all time. I never get tired of it. I just think it's really beautiful and comforting. He's a minor celebrity, but Adam Schlesinger. He's best known for co-writing Stacy's Mom, but I knew him as one of the songwriters for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I really got to know him through listening to his demos and interviews, so I was devastated when I learned that he had died last April of COVID-related complications. It was actually his death that really drove home the seriousness of the pandemic for me. I had no idea. I have Stacy's Mom on my shower playlist and love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I have retroactive sadness now. Stefan Karl. Memes aside, I grew up on Lazy Town. When the resurgence of his popularity came up, it was a nice blast to the past. And then when he died of cancer, I got extremely choked up since I've had multiple bad experiences with family members and cancer. Stefan Karl specifically too was an amazing person, and it's extremely unfortunate that him and many others have lost their lives prematurely due to cancer. Steve Irwin. That man was so passionate about wildlife, and it's good to see his wife and in these past few years his children keeping up the fight. John Prine when he passed from COVID-19 complications last year. First time crying over a celebrity since David Bowie, but Prine really took a big toll on me for a few days. Amazing songwriter, beautiful voice, and such a kind soul taken before his work here was done. John brought me to tears so many times through his music. He will continue to make me cry for the rest of my life, I'm sure. I weep with happiness when I hear my wedding song, In Spite of Ourselves. And I weep with sadness, but with a smile, and when I get to heaven, I will cherish his music forever and vow to evangelize his word for all my days. John Prine lyrics make us better human beings. Leonard Cohen was just sad. I had a chance to see him perform about 10 years ago but skipped out as I didn't have the money. Kicking myself now. Prince made me extremely emotional too. Loved his music. I came looking for someone to name Leonard Cohen. I didn't discover him until I heard his music being played after he died. That's when I cried. David Bowie made me so sad. The world felt a bit less special without him in it. Now, I can play his music fine, but one time in 5 it'll bum me out all over again. Freddie Prinze. I was a huge fan of Chico and the Man. My parents had to sit me down and explain that he had killed himself. I was pretty young and I couldn't understand how someone who was rich and famous could want to do that. Amy Winehouse. She's a similar age to me and from the same city, which meant I always heard a lot of news about her and was invested in her success in a way. She died a tragic death and seemed like a really good person despite all the difficulties she faced. Sad to see her go. I still, to this day, find music from her I have never heard. My favorite song ever by her is called Detachment. As a songwriter, she has been such a inspiration to me. She has said something along the lines of, to write song is like an exorcism, and you could tell she was battling demons. She was such a sensitive soul but yet had this strength to her. I miss her every day. Monty Young. Not super famous, but the person behind the old Haloid video where Samus and not Master Chief fight it out. That video was freaking legendary. He went on to make a series that pitted Final Fantasy characters with dead or alive characters. It was stellar. Never seen anything like it. I'm like 99% sure it inspired Square to make those Final Fantasy Dissidia games. He went on to start making RWBY, which I appreciate what he brought to that series. The characters, weapons, and fight choreography. The dude had talent beyond anything else in entertainment. And I'll never stop feeling like we all lost decades of future inspirational and influential art. I was hoping someone would say Monty. Thinking of that podcast where they broke the news makes me tear up. Total Biscuit from YouTube. I think it mostly hurt because his fans watched him from the start as he got cancer, just to see him get better, it come back, and eventually force him to retire soon before dying. Came here to say TB. Took me months before I could watch the Life and Times video of him. Still brought a test to me a year later. Byron Bernstein aka Wreckful. I don't know how much others might consider him a celebrity, but watching his videos and streams helped me find laughter and fun when I was in a really dark place. I stopped watching him for a long while, and distinctly remember thinking to myself, I wonder what Wreckful's playing these days, just a few days before the news came out that he passed. Neil Innes. Probably not as well known compared to others already mentioned, but he was one of my musical and comedy heroes. You'd recognize him as Robin's head minstrel in Monty Python's Holy Grail. He also was a founder of the Bonzo Dog Band, and later, the Ruttles. He'd toured with his reformed Ruttles in my hometown in 2018 and early 2019, and I got to chat to him after each show. An absolute gent. And although he was 75, he'd been going strong up until then, so I was absolutely gutted. Jared Higgins, aka Juice WRLD. He felt like a friend because of how authentic he was. His music was him just speaking his mind. Truly soul crushing when he died. Still hurts me to this day. 999 forever. Korean singer-actress Sully, Choi Jin-ri. I was really sad about Gu Hara and 5 Hyena's Kim Jong-hyun, but I never managed to shed tears for them. Maybe it's because I was closer in age to her, but Sully's death did make me cry. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.